day of workshop. So we encourage you to actively engage in the session, ask questions, and make most of this learning opportunity. Thank you so much for joining this session, and let us begin today's session. Thank you so much.
So, good evening, everyone. Sorry for being a bit late today. I had an exam, that's why I got late a bit 10 to 15 minutes. So, today I'm gonna revise all the important case laws since 1950 to 2026, and we will explore the what are the important cases uh, that were dealt with the Supreme Court, mainly regarding the fundamental rights and the enforcement of fundamental rights under Article 32, and the various writs and petitions that were used during these period of almost 75 to 80 years. And I have also compiled a MCQ for you so that you can revise all the concepts. And if you have any doubt, today I will try to clear everything. And even if someone has some doubt in other parts other than fundamental rights and writs, they can ask me it can be any part of the constitution. Yesterday's I think Sunidhi asked me about the election commission, so I had briefly explained about that thing. So if you have any doubt regarding any other part of the constitution which you think you don't get it easily, or you're not able to recall it or remember it in exams, you can ask me, and or any confusing point. Okay, everyone is ready for this session, today's session?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Uh, Wait a minute. I'll. Give me a second. I'm opening my PPT. Okay. Um, are you able to see the PPT on your screens? Is it
Yes, ma'am.
visible to all? Okay. So I have compiled all the important case laws and the architectural blueprint of our nation. Since 1951, how from the Shankari Prasad case to till now, how it evolved, and what are the important concepts you need to remember. First, I would like to know, have you ever read about the Shankari Prasad case in your bachelor's degree, LLB? Okay. So, anyone, can you explain what was the main facts? What was held in this case, and why it is so important? Otherwise, I'll explain. Okay, so it was one of the most important case because in 1951 Shankari Prasad case came, it led to our first constitutional amendment, right? Because the Supreme Court ruled that Parliament amending power under Article 368 includes the power to amend the fundamental rights guaranteed under Part 3. Then you must have heard about the Champakam Durai Rajan case also. It was also related to the First Amendment. Actually, what happened? It was an educational institute for medical colleges, and there was particular reservation which was going against the Article 15 subclause 1, which says that there shall be no discrimination on the basis of what? Sex, religion, caste, place of birth. These were the things that shall be not discriminated. But in Champakam Durai Rajan, Supreme Court held, okay, Sijil Sharma, Shankari Prasad, Women of India. Power to amend any part of the constitution, the court ruled that. Okay, good. It was the First Amendment declared valid. The case. Yes, correct. So I was explaining the Champakam Durai Rajan case first, which also led to the First Amendment under Article 15. What you see in Article 15 subclause 4 is actually the result of the Champakam Durai Rajan case, where the reservation was given to other people as well. So, I have formulated how the Keshav Nanda Bharti case made the basic structure doctrine and how Parliament used Article 368 to amend anything, and how this basic structure acts as a barrier that anything cannot be amended by the whims and fancies of the Parliament, the central government. There are few things which need to be considered before amendment. The fundamentals of the Constitution, the basic structure should not be destroyed. Not able to change it. I have another PPT which has all the list of the cases. First, I want to show you that, then I'll discuss this one. हम क्या recording provide की जाएगी? I'm not sure about this. I'll have to ask to the host of the workshop. Give me a second. I'm going to show you a chronology of all the cases. Now, kindly go through it. I'm going to explain you. Are you able to see everything? Is it visible to all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it is the evolution of fundamental rights and writs from the A.K. Gopalan case to Puttaswamy and beyond that, 2025 to 2026 cases. Now, I will explain you everything in a story format, and I have compiled my PPT in that way that even if you miss some points in during the classes, these PPTs will make you refresh all the lessons by just seeing it at one go. So these are the fundamental rights that you all know. And these are the five constitutional writs that we have already discussed in yesterday's class. I would like to ask everyone a simple question: which writ is the only writ which can be which waives off the locus standi, which means even if an aggrieved party is not filing the case, someone else in public interest can file a petition. Which writ is that? I had discussed it yesterday. Anyone? Quo warranto. Okay, good, good, good. And what about habeas corpus? Can anybody else file for the illegal detention of someone? Any idea about that? Yes, there are exceptions in private cases. If private individual have been detained, it can be against a private individual also. So family members or other person can also use. But in quo warranto, it is actually open to everyone. That anyone in the interest of public can file the writ of quo warranto, by which authority a person has acquired that position. Public authority can include even the MPs, MLAs, any government servant, civil servant, state government employee, anyone. Even and also the Article 12 plays important role in this. Whatever comes under the definition of state, and any employee who has acquired that public place and is not eligible for that post, anyone can file a quo warranto writ for that. Did you get that? Now tell me, which writ is about it is also preventive and also curative. It is both preventive and curative in nature. Which writ is this? Good, Sunidhi. Anyone else? Okay. And tell me, what is the main? Yes, Divya Sagar. Good. Yes, good. Tell me, what are the grounds of certiorari and prohibition? Tell me about the certiorari. I'm just revising you all if you have forgotten the yesterday's lesson. I've shared the PPT as well, in which all the grounds and everything has been mentioned. Any ground you can, if you don't remember all, you can give one or two examples. I'm just refreshing you all, or you warming you up for today's session. I want that whatever I have taught you, You need to grasp it. Okay, no worries. Certiorari grounds include excess of jurisdiction. Yes, when the lower court has exceeded, good. Yes, when the court has exceeded its jurisdiction or has given a wrong judgment. Prevent before decision, certiorari, good. Prohibition stops the lower court from doing something. Yes. In certiorari, what also happens that if a lower court has given a wrong judgment or it has not followed the natural justice principle, then also it becomes a ground that certiorari writ can be filed, right? And it is both curative and preventive in nature. And it is also called the post-mortem thing because it is done after the judgment. Because the higher court quashes the order of the lower court in this petition, the certiorari petition. Okay, so I think everyone knows about each and everything, each and every writ of Article 32, right? Now I will move forward. Yes. So first, I have divided the evolution in various phases. First phase is era 1, 1950 to 1967. Why this phase is very important for 1950 to 1967? Any idea? Any other thing? If anybody has interest in the political parties or idea about how coalition politics evolved and how regionalism rose and grew with time. So this 1950 to 1967 phase is very important. I'll tell you why. Because from 1950 to 1967, there was majoritarian government, and it is also called the Nehruvian era. And you also know that that time, the Supreme Court judges were not appointed through collegium system. It came very later, after the SP Gupta judgment, 1980s, right? So also during this period, there was a strict interpretation of every provision of the constitution, and we also followed the UK the common law laws and the Westminster provisions, because we had the colonial hangover of British. That's why the Supreme Court also relied more on the British mode of giving judgments. Later on, after the emergency era, after the Menka Gandhi case, we tried to mix both the UK and USA positive and negative things. And today we are still evolving with new liberal thoughts in our in Supreme Court judgments. So I'll explain why 1950, 1967 is important, how various cases molded our current scenario, and how future is also going to be shaped with the various judgments. So first is A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras. As you know, this was very important because right to life and personal liberty, Article 21, was interpreted in a very narrow way, and it also held that the fundamental rights are different compartments and cannot mingle up. The golden triangle principle of Article 14, 1921 was not earlier considered to be valid, but later it was. So in A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras, Article 21 was under the issue. What writ was used? Habeas corpus under Article 32. It held that Article 14, 19, 21 are mutually exclusive and each stands alone. Procedure established by law is equal to any law passed by the legislature, which means that anything which has been passed by the legislature, the parliament, will be right. whether it is arbitrary or not, whether it is reasonable or not, it doesn't matter. If it has been passed by the legislature, the parliament, then it is right. And in these times, law was considered superior above everything, and the concept of natural justice was not considered to be above the legislature's law. What was the impact of it? It was a narrow reading. State could curtail liberty through any legislation. Then, as I explained you, procedure established by law. Tell me from where we have borrowed this concept of procedure established by law. Anyone? From where we have borrowed this procedure established by law? Anyone? You can type in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and answer. Okay. No. Procedure established by law has not been taken from USA. The due process has been taken from the USA, not procedure established by law. Actually, procedure established by law has been taken from Japan. Yes. Correct, Sajal Sharma. So it is a basic question, because many times in competitive exams you might be given a question or match the following, that these are the things which have been borrowed from different countries. Similarly, how DPSP has been taken from Ireland, and how fundamental rights have been taken from USA. So you need to know, we are also called the bag of borrowed bag, constitution of borrowed bag, because we have taken a lot of things from other constitution of various countries. So let us move. Wait a minute. So in the 1950 to 1967 era, A.K. Gopalan case was very important. Champakam Durai Rajan case is important. Shankari Prasad case is important, and Golaknath versus State of Punjab is also important. Later on, Golaknath versus State of Punjab 1967 was overruled by Keshwananda Bharti case. Do you know what was the finding in the Golaknath case? It was held that fundamental rights can be amended. In Golaknath, it was held. But in Keshwananda Bharti, it was overruled. Yes. Yes, Sunidhi. Then the great turning points. Keshwananda Bharti versus State of Kerala in 1973. The largest ever bench, 13 judges. And here, basic structure, Parliament can amend the constitution but cannot destroy its basic structure, was held. And here, what are the things that come under basic structure? Supremacy of constitution, rule of law, judicial review, secularism, federalism, fundamental rights. And it is not exhaustive. The Supreme Court, to its various judgments, can include or exclude anything, right? Just like Article 21 has been evolving from time to time, similarly, basic structure is an evolving thing. It is not exhaustive, a list of exhaustive things. Then came Menka Gandhi versus Union of India. The Golden Triangle Principle, Article 14, 19, 21. These are important things that was held. that it cannot correct. Acha, tell me which amendment was under question in the Keshwananda Bharti case? Do you know about that? Any idea about that? Have you ever heard about the 24th Amendment, 25th Amendment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, explain. Anyone? Tell me what was 24th Amendment? Is anybody writing? Constitution can be amended without altering the basic constitution.
मैम 24th अमेंडमेंट से क्लॉज 4 आर्टिकल 13 में ऐड किया था, जिसमें बोला था कि आर्टिकल 13 शैल नॉट अप्लाई टू द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट। और जो आर्टिकल 368 का हेडिंग पहले सिर्फ था कि प्रोसीजर ऑफ द अमेंडमेंट, तो उसके अंदर क्योंकि गोलकनाथ केस में जो जजमेंट आया था उसमें ये बोला गया था कि जो पावर ऑफ अमेंडमेंट है इसका पार्लियामेंट का, वो आर्टिकल 368 से नहीं आता, क्योंकि उसमें सिर्फ प्रोसीजर दिया गया है, ना कि पावर दिया गया है। तो 24th अमेंडमेंट एक्ट से उसमें हेडिंग में पावर भी ऐड किया गया।
Okay. It also talked about the term law in the Article 368.
यस मैम।
Yes. So there was a judicial conflict. The court ruled that constitutional amendments under Article 368 fell under the definition of law in Article 13 subclause 2. So making any amendment that violated fundamental rights void. That's why it is important. You know now definition of law has been given under Article 13 subclause 2. So judicial conflict was that the court ruled that constitutional amendments under Article 368 fell under the definition of law under Article 13(2), making any amendment that violated fundamental rights void. But there was legislative overrule. The ruling halted crucial government initiatives such as land reform, social welfare projects. In response, the parliament enacted the 24th Amendment to nullify the Golaknath case. That's why 24th Amendment was done. And then subsequently 25th Amendment was also took place. Do you know about Article 31C? Any idea about Article 31C? Because I'll explain why Keshwananda Bharti case is very important, because it dealt with various things. The 25th Amendment is related to Article 31C. In 1971, 25th Amendment took place. It curtailed the fundamental right to property. It restricted courts from questioning the amount paid by the state for property acquisition, and introduced Article 31C, which protected laws implementing DPSPs from being challenged for violating fundamental rights. It introduced Article 31C, which says that for implementing DPSP, particularly Article 39B, equitable distribution of community resources, and 39C, prevention of concentration of wealth, it could not be voided even if it violated fundamental rights under Article 14 and 19, which means that when 31C says that 39B(c) is above Article 14 and 19. Even if Article 14 and 19, which is a fundamental right, is being violated, but when government is trying to implement Article 39B and C, which is the DPSP, equitable distribution of community resources, and